Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Cricket on Forever Sports for today's preview as South Africa take on Pakistan in a two-match test series. The first time South Africa has been to Pakistan in over a decade, and for many of the players, I think it's literally just Faf du Plessis who has actually played in Pakistan. Such has been the length of time between the last time that South Africa played a test series or any series in the country itself. So it's a very exciting time to try and get back to playing cricket in Pakistan. You know, usually cricket against Pakistan was played in the UAE, in Dubai or Abu Dhabi, but now with the security concerns and stuff like that, seem to have sort of de-escalated slightly, and a full onto security. It has been deemed safe enough, and the Proteas have obviously gone on travel and will play tomorrow at the National Stadium in Karachi, which will be very interesting. And I think that it's going to be a very, very big test for South Africa. I think that you've got to look at Pakistan as the overriding favourites. Home advantage, you know, and even though South Africa coming off better form against Sri Lanka, whereas Pakistan lost to Brisbane, annihilated by New Zealand. Home advantage is everything, especially in conditions which South Africans have never ever played in. You know, and also the problem is South Africa has always historically struggled against spin, and Karachi is notoriously does often turn quite a bit. So it's going to be a very, very big test of South Africa's, not necessarily their depth, but of their skill, because it's a very inexperienced test side. Having said that, Pakistan's side is equally as experienced, in fact, in many ways, even less experienced in terms of the amount of tests played across the side. There are some older players. I mean, you've got certain players making their debuts in their 30s, but in terms of tests played, it is also quite an inexperienced side, which will be quite interesting to see how much experience comes into it. And I think somebody like Yasir Shah, who's been there, he's done that, he's been around for Pakistan for many years. He's been playing his 44th test tomorrow in conditions which he knows very well. I think he's going to be probably the biggest sort of player that, bar after Babar Azam, will be one of the sort of the ace up the sleeve for Pakistan, because he's just played so much cricket in this environment. But yeah, so in terms of teams and stuff like that, in terms of the Proteas predicted lineup, interestingly, Mark Boucher kind of hinted that George Lindy will actually probably get the nod tomorrow as a spinning all-rounder, probably ahead of Vian Mulder. The other alternative would have been to have Mulder and George Lindy and then drop a seamer. But I think this is how they're going to line up. You're going to have Aiden Markham, Dean Alga at the top of the order, Rassie van der Dussen, Faf du Plessis, Quinton de Kock, and Temba Bavuma. That is pretty much settled. That will not change. The only thing that might change is maybe Temba Bavuma comes in at 5, Quinton moves down to 6. But that batting lineup will not change tomorrow. I'll be very surprised if we see any changes to that. Then the number 7 position is between George Linder and Vian Mulder at this stage. Given the spin-friendly conditions, and I think Mark Boucher was very clear about the fact that he wants the Proteas to transform as a side and not just go with a whole seam attack, because with South Africa we've got good seamers, but to be able to back our spinning options and say, you know what, we can adapt to the conditions. We can go to India with spinners that are good enough to cope, which was not the case last time. But in Pakistan we're going to have conditions which might suit the spin more. Go with that extra spinner, and then when you move to Lahore, where there could be a bit more sort of seam friendly, then you can chuck in that extra spinner, that extra seamer. So I like that attitude, to be able to sort of back the conditions and say, right, well, we think we've got players who can suit any conditions. If it's seam friendly, we can go with this. If it's spin friendly, we can go with this, and we back the overall talent. I mean, it's not just a case of, well, we know we have to play an extra spinner, but we just don't have one, so we're going to have to play that extra seamer. But also, you've got something like Aiden Markham we can chip in with some spin, as well as Dean Alga. But I think, most importantly, I think Khisar Rabada comes back in as a huge plus for the Proteas. Lungi Ngidi and Anurag Nokia look back to their best in certain stages of the last test series, which is a very big boost. And then Keshav Maharaj is going to be huge. I really rate Keshav Maharaj. And I think that, for years, we've been waiting to sort of find that spinning option. I think he's been one of the best test spinners South Africa has. Statistically, he has, in fact. If you go look at his average strike rate and stuff like that, he's been very impressive. And I think that, whilst with disappointing in Sri Lanka, I don't think he took any wickets. In theory, spinning conditions, he should be able to come into his own. And, he's very highly rated by some very big personalities, like Shane Warne. He really highly rates Keshav Maharaj. So hopefully he comes into his own tomorrow. Temba Bavuma, obviously, somebody under pressure, you'll need to perform again, because his spot in the squad will always sort of be up for debate. His numbers aren't particularly impressive. But again, if you do a statistical analysis where you look at situations under pressure, he scores runs. He scores very important runs, And I mean, you can never sort of say one run's more valuable than another on the face of it, but the reality it is. And he scored some very important runs and had some very important knocks in the past. But he does need to try and reach some 3-figure scores, get some big scores, and start proving that he deserves to be in that lineup. The other players under pressure, Aiden Markham still needs to prove some consistency. Rassie van der Dussen, a few question marks after not coming off against Sri Lanka. Apart from that, the batting lineup is really settled. Battery Basile looked very good. Quinton de Kock owes the side some runs, but hopefully everybody else can sort of contribute around him. And then if you look at the Pakistan side, right, this is the predicted lineup. And there are potentially going to be probably 2 debuts. In fact, it's almost inevitable that there will be 2 debuts. And Imran Butt as well as Numan Ali, who is a 35-year-old and left-arm spinner who, is 34 years old, sorry, will be probably making his debut. If you look at his first-class stats, very impressive. And this is why I think they're going to hope that he'll be the foil for Yasir Shah. Because if you look at his average, an average of 23, an economy of less than 3, 16 first-wicket hauls, 18 5-wicket hauls, 5 10-wicket hauls at first-class level. He's a very experienced player and has played a lot of cricket in Pakistan. So despite it being his first test, I think he's going to be very important in trying to complement Yasir Shah. Imran Butt also coming in for his debut. He'll partner Abid Ali at the top of the order, who I think is probably going to be one of the most important players in the series, to be honest, because the batting lineup for Pakistan is going to be can they compete? It's going to come down to, can they put on the scores? And he is, one of the most experienced players in the squad. He's got lots of years behind him. Look, test matches-wise, he's only played 8 tests, but he's been playing first-class cricket for years. He's got over 100 first-class matches. He's got an average of 38, and he really needs to sort of knuckle down. And because you've got somebody like Imran Butt who's going to be playing his first game at 25 years old, 72 first-class matches, so he has played a lot of cricket, but not as experienced. And having 2 players at the top of the order who are not very experienced can sometimes be a bit of an issue. But look at Imran Butt, who's coming making his debut tomorrow. He's got a first-class average of 36. He's scored 10 centuries in 23 50, so he's got quite a good conversion rate. And he does a bit of bowling. Nothing too worried. It'll be very unlikely that he does too much bowling over the series. So Azhar Ali and Babar Azam are going to be they're the Pakistan main batsmen. So those are the 2 that you really need to try and focus on, especially Babar Azam. We know how talented he is, one of the best players in the world, and captaining his first series, in fact, after being ruled out for the New Zealand series. So it's a big test, big series for him. First of all, what's his captaincy going to be like? Second of all, will he be able to produce the numbers? He currently has a test average of 45, 500s, 15, 50s. So for somebody of his quality, I think he'd like to try and get some more big scores. 29 tests into his career, so he's one of the most experienced players in this lineup. Funny enough, next to somebody like Shaheen Afridi. Apart from that, Mohammad Rizwan, Faheen Ashraf, Hassan Ali, Numan Ali, and then, as I said, Shaheen Afridi will spearhead the seam attack. A very, very talented player is Shaheen Afridi, and for somebody who's so young, he's still 20 years old, posting very impressive numbers. You're already 41 test wickets to his name. Also pretty handy with the bat, to be honest. Looks a lot better than his numbers suggest. But he will also be a key figure for that Pakistan attack. So, it should be a very interesting test. And I think that we pretty much don't know what to expect because we haven't played in Pakistan for such a long time. So it's going to be an interesting to see how the Proteas go about it. But I'd like to see some aggressive, positive cricket. Let's go out there and try score runs. Let's attack the bat. Let's try and take wickets. Let's try and take 20 wickets this test match. Let's go and put some big scores on. Let's go and get to hundreds. Let's try and be positive. And try and get a result. It's a young Proteas side, but it's also an inexperienced Pakistan side. 2 sides with lots to prove, and 2 sides desperate to get a victory. Obviously, Pakistan desperate to win, especially on home soil. And the Proteas need to try and prove that Sri Lanka wasn't just a fluke and wasn't just Sri Lanka in weakened opposition, and that they can do it against better sides like a Pakistan before we go and play against the likes of Australia later this year. So let me know what you think is going to happen in the comments below. Smash a like on the video if you enjoy this type of content. Subscribe to the channel. We'll be covering the test as it happens. We'll be having daily updates. And when we move to the T20 series, we're going to be bringing in live watch-alongs as well. So we'll be covering the entire tour very, very thoroughly. So make sure you keep it locked on Forever Sports. My name is Stephen, and I'll chat to you soon.